My name is Noel Eastwood. I'm a psychologist astrologer, and this is how to read a newborn chart using psychological astrology techniques or approach. So let's just start with the orientation of the chart. It's a newborn, and so that's the name of the chart, so that I know what chart it is. It doesn't have a gender, so I've called it an event chart, so it's both male and female. It's a random chart, so it's done for now on the 26th of June 2016. It's a Sunday and it's almost midday, 11:48 a.m. I've used Los Angeles, California because I'm an Australian. Most of the people interested in what I do come from America and Europe and India, so I thought that I'd pitch it towards the greater population, just so that it doesn't confuse people. So the position of Los Angeles is 34 north and 118 west. It's a Western astrology reading, so it's geocentric, tropical. Placidus house system is the most common, and we're using the true north node. When I do a reading, I always use 4 points as the anchor points. So I'll show you what I do every time I do a reading for anybody, whether it be a psychology client or an astrology reading for someone interested in astrology. So I do the ascendant, which is Virgo. I go across to the descendant, check that out. Number 2 is your midheaven, and I quickly scan down the bottom what's happening down here. Then the next 2 points are the luminaries, sun and moon. I'll just do that again. The ascendant, the midheaven, sun, moon. So those 4 points give me almost an entire reading just from those 4 points and what is happening associated with those points. So now I will walk you through what I mean by that. So we have a Virgo ascendant, and it's ruled by Mercury. Even though Virgo is an earth sign, the placement of its ruler, Mercury, at the top of the chart as the planet of high degree. So any planet sitting at the top of the chart, the closest planet to or a conjunction to the midheaven, is called the planet of high degree. And so Mercury now becomes very, very important. Mercury, or that planet of high degree, is like a light globe in the ceiling of a room, and it shines its energy all through the entire chart. So Mercury becomes very, very powerful, elevated. Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. So now we have Mercury ruling 2 very powerful angles, or the most powerful angles, the ascendant and the midheaven. So straight away we can see that this child is smart. Their approach to life will be with their head first. Let's look at these 2 luminaries, because that statement just there about ruling everything with the head first is going to be in conflict with their heart. So Sun conjunct Venus in the 10th, and they're both in Cancer. So we have a Cancer Sun. That's water. That's emotional. Moon in Pisces. Moon is emotion. Pisces is emotional. It's water as well. And we have a conjunction to Chiron, the wounded healer, which is also I consider to be a water planet. Chiron is an asteroid, or a dwarf planet. Its mythology is Chiron, the wounded healer, and its impact psychologically is usually very similar to Pluto down the bottom here in the 4th house, which is psychological, and they don't call him the wounded healer for nothing. And you can read up some of the books that Liz Green has written about him, and there are a lot of other authors who have written about Chiron as well. So we're seeing straight away that this child is quite emotional and quite intellectual. Now we have a third ingredient here, and that is Jupiter sitting on the ascendant. Now Jupiter is applying towards, so 16 degrees, and this line here is 20 degrees. So this is the horizon, ascendant over here, which is rising in the east, and the descendant is the setting sign in the west. Now Jupiter and all the other planets all travel in an anti-clockwise direction, so Jupiter is applying, and come around here, Moon and Chiron are separating from that ascendant-descendant line. The only one that doesn't do that is the North Node, which is actually an angle of the Moon, and that's moving in a clockwise direction. So the only one that moves in the clockwise is the set of headphones there, the North Node. So now we have Jupiter very, very powerfully placed in this child's psyche, and this is a newborn child, so we know nothing about them except what we've given here with this snapshot of where the planets are in time and space in the zodiac. So we can see that Jupiter, because it is within what we got 4 degrees there of the ascendant, it's moving towards and pushing its energy into that first house and firing up that ascendant line. So we have a lot of fire there as well now. So we have fire, earth, water, air, air and air. So we've got to double up on that Virgo. The rulership of Mercury is fairly critical in this child, because now we go down to the third house, which is traditionally ruled by Mercury. The third house is an air house, and we've got Scorpio on the cusp, and we've got Mars and Saturn sitting inside. So when it comes to schooling and learning and education, this child's going to be very sharp. Look at these two planets here. And in fact, we probably don't even need Mars and Saturn in here to tell us more about their schooling. Scorpio tells us, don't push me, don't bully me, don't be aggressive or assertive with me. I will learn naturally. I'll learn my way. I'll do it my way. Because if you push me, I'll push back. If you bore me or annoy me, I will be stubborn and I won't give ground. Now, even though these two planets are retrograde, they automatically reinforce what we're being told by the rest of the chart. We're being told that that third house is really, really important, because of Mercury being the elevated planet, rules both the midheaven and the ascendant. It's a Mercury house, and we've also got Scorpio on the cusp of the third. These two planets just reinforce everything else that we've just seen. Let's look at the oppositions. So we're going to move to that first house. The first house is a miniature self. It's a physical interaction with the world. And opposite is the seventh house, which is what comes into us or towards us. It's the people that we meet. So this is us, and this is how we learn about us, through others. That first house tells us that the child will be sharp, intellectual, and driven, happy, joyful, generous. All of those qualities of Jupiter now come into play, because Jupiter's, even though he's not in the first house, he is applying to it. That means his energy is pushing and directed into that first house, because it is so close to the cusp. And if we look at Gorkellan's angles and aspects, this is what he's talking about. Those applying aspects are they're very, very powerful. So we've got independence there as well, saying that I want to be a leader, I'm going to compete, I want other kids to be interested in what I'm doing, I want to belong, I want to be accepted, and that is then directed through this seventh house by the people that this child gets engaged with. So the people that engage with this child coming through a Pisces lens and an emotional lens and a wounded lens. So here I am pushing out into the world. Look at me, enjoy life with me. But a lot of the kids are going to be going, well, look, you're too pushy, or you're too smart, or you talk too much, or whatever kids do. So here we have a parenting style that you'll need to address how that child manages their energy, that Jupiterian energy, that intellectual energy, that energy to be independent learning and independent in expressing itself, with its sensitivity to others. So this tells us this child's going to be very, very sensitive. So if you have you're doing a reading for someone with similar sort of traits, or someone that has a child with similar traits, then you would say, teach them how to play. Take turns, you listen, you say thank you, you don't go knocking them over in the sandpit, you share, those sort of things. So we have, so what the moon is telling us is, I'm going to look at the two luminaries now, is the moon is telling us that he or she is very sensitive. Moon in Pisces, it's water. The key words for Pisces, of course, are emotion and sensitivity and dreaming and abandonment. Feeling abandoned, feeling alone, being lonely, isolated, alienated. And as a psychologist, that's what I'm looking for in someone's chart. I'm looking for where is the conflict, because when we see the conflict in someone's chart, that's where the person spends all their time trying to resolve. The strengths we take for granted, but our weaknesses or our conflicts is what we wrestle with and struggle with. So it's where we put all of our time and effort into. So this child will find that its sensitivity to the world hurts. It's as simple as that. Here the Chiron, or the myth of Chiron, the wounded healer, very similar psychological influence as Pluto, saying that emotionally, moon, I'm going to get hurt and feel bereft. I'm going to have grief. I'm going to feel lonely. I'm going to feel abandoned. I'm going to feel betrayed. Now we have an opposition here to Jupiter, so it tells us it's going to be out of proportion. It's going to magnify that. So here the child races into the world. Look at me, look how smart I am. Look how adept I am at living this physical world. Look at how competitive and brilliant I am. Come and join me. I want you to join and experience life with me. And the rest of the world, if they say no, or if they interfere with that in any way, then we feel hurt. And so part of your parenting style is to adapt and nurture that first house, seventh house conflict that we have now seen. So it's critical that when we look at a child's chart, that we start to notice these key features. See how much we've learnt already from the ascendant, the midheaven, and now just from the moon now. That this child is brilliant, but easily hurt. Very, very sensitive. You probably know people like that already. You might even be like that yourself. So that seventh house reflects the intensity and brilliance of that first. Let's come to the sun. That 10th house is the house of achievement. The midheaven is what we strive to achieve. The midheaven and the 10th house can only achieve when their foundations, which is the 4th house, their childhood and their upbringing, is secure. So when you feel safe and secure, you can achieve anything. And this is quite a successful chart. We look at that 10th house and go, wow, this kid can do anything. They're going to be highly successful. The Sun, Venus, Mercury, the 3 personal planets in that 10th house are all success planets. Given the right energy, even though we've got some squares, we've got, looks like almost forming a grand cross, we've got oppositions, we've got T-squares, we've got trines, This kid's still brilliant. And knowing the foundations, the quality of those foundations, tells us how successful that brilliance will be. We know that we have a major conflict here in handling other people and handling being knocked back. No, you can't join this group. How do they handle that? And as a parent, that's what you will learn very, very quickly, that your parenting style will need to reflect and model how you manage conflict and loneliness and betrayal and abandonment. It's a common human trait. You know, we bounce into these relationships all the time. So, you know, as a parent, you would be modeling how to do this. Your child will learn because that's how they learn. They watch, they model. So that sun is now telling us about the fourth house. It tells us that the child's foundations, which, look at this, Sagittarius, on the cusp of the fourth, ruled by Jupiter, which is sitting on the cusp of the first. So we have home and family involvement in this child's life. There's a very strong involvement, so probably sporty, you know, these are smart, outgoing parents that have their family involved in all sorts of activities. We've got this Pluto late in the fourth. Now this is interesting. Look at this. We've got an opposition to Venus. 11 degrees, 16 degrees, orb of 5 degrees. That's an opposition. Venus is conjunct Sun by 5:11. That's 6 degrees. So that's a nice conjunction. But Sun is 5 degrees, Pluto 16, that's an orb of 11 degrees. Now I would, as a psychologist, I would look at this and go, that's an opposition. I will see this in people's charts. I will see the influence of Pluto on their Sun. Because of it's 11 degrees. Look, we can go up to 15, even 18 degrees in conjunctions and oppositions and trines and squares. Just depends on a whole heap of factors. One factor is they're both water, for starters. This one's in a water, Pluto's in a water house, adds emphasis to his energy. And Sun and Venus are conjunct, so that conjunction draws in Pluto via the Venus. But even at 11 degrees, I would still give Pluto-Sun an opposition anyway. So now we have water. It's an opposition, so it's other people. Who are the other people? Family members. Who are the family members? Could be mum, could be dad, could be siblings, could be cousins, could be uncles and aunts, grandfathers, grandmothers. You know, it's family. That fourth house is family. It doesn't really discriminate identity of family members. It says this is your upbringing, your childhood. Upbringing, childhood, that's family. So we know that there will be some conflict there that will upset them. So again, we have a double up on that sensitivity. There we go. The moon in Pisces, conjunct Chiron and conjunct the descendant. And we have the Sun, Venus conjunction in Cancer, water as well, opposed by Pluto. So we have an enormous amount of emotional sensitivity. And because Jupiter is also opposing the moon and triggering, it's like a magnifying glass effect. Jupiter I see as a magnifying glass. He goes around magnifying things, good or bad. So he's going to magnify when the child gets kicked out of the social group at school. It's bigger than Ben-Hur. You know, it is magnified, out of control. It's the end of the world. So the drama queen will come out. And that's where the parenting style, the parenting modeling good behaviours, modeling management strategies comes into it. So let me just do a quick wrap up again. We have a Virgo ascendant conjuncted by Jupiter, which is applying. Applying is stronger than separating. Jupiter is applying, North Node is separating. Even though it's separating, it's still within 5 degrees of the ascendant. The North Node is it's karma, it's destiny, and it's in the 12th, yeah, but it's also still a conjunction with the ascendant, and so I would give it some benefits there. Now, does it come into play at birth? Of course. Of course it does. But I'm not even going to consider the North Node yet until this child is probably 14, so the first Saturn opposition. And I'd probably glance at it and see what it's doing in its own transits and what the other planets are doing to it. But in a natal chart, the North Node, I'm going to sort of, I'm going to leave it there, and I would look at this later. Initially, I'm looking at the most active principles in the chart, what's going to immediately impact the child and the child's parents, the child's family. And North Node is not going to be one. So that's more a spiritual aspect. That's, there's other qualities that will start to shine and illuminate for us, but not right now. Would be more concerned doing a reading for a parent of a newborn with what the major players are doing. What are they doing? They are what the parents will see and notice. They're not going to notice the child's journey of the Tao right now. That comes later. So North Node, yes, it's conjunct, it's separating, it's in the 12th house. We're going to look at that later. So we have Jupiter smashing through into that first house, dynamite, dynamic, generous, party, drugs, alcohol. Not at 1 year of age, of course, but that's what Jupiter conjunct the ascendant and applying from the 12th can do. So it's exciting. I want to incarnate in this life. I want to feel. I want to experience. I want to get into my body. I want to run fast. I want to excel at sports. I want to shine in drama. I want to play guitar. I want to draw. I want to sing. I want to do all these things, and that's very much a Jupiterian thing. And looks like it's reinforced by the family, by its rulership of that 4th house. That first house, dynamite. That 7th house of other people, yeah, well, that can sort of dampen the wick and the flames and the fire of that Jupiter. So we need to be very aware of that this child will sometimes want to come home and cry. And that's okay. That's what we do. As a 1-year-old, probably sensitive. When you say no, they're going to cry because of all this water. And so it'll almost reinforce this opposition, isn't it? The oppositions are always other people or other situations. A conjunction is internal. Okay, we've got conjunctions here, Venus, Sun, and Moon, Chiron. Conjunctions are internal, oppositions are external, usually from other people or outside situations. So when you say no, that's the opposition, and then they'll feel hurt. And that's where your modelling and your parenting skills come into play there. Education-wise, very sharp. See, Jupiter adds in intellect by the bucket load. And we've got that Scorpio, Mars, Saturn there. Independent learner, don't push me. I know how to learn. I know my subjects. There's no way in the world that you'll force me to learn. I know how to do it myself. So we have very much an independent learner and a very smart cookie here for this. Mercurial energy shining its light everywhere as a planet of high degree. Health-wise, straight away we go to Virgo and Mercury. Virgo is Earth, even though I've given it very much a mercurial flavour, very much an air flavour. Virgo is digestion and elimination, constipation. So lots and lots of fruit and veggies, not tinned stuff, not cooked, raw food, raw fruits. Fresh raw fruits is nothing like it. It's great for digestion. And the fire of the Jupiter means a tendency towards overheating, so lots of water play. So on really hot days, you put the sprinkler on and the kids run around underneath the sprinkler. You put out tubs of water and they play in the water. With little babies, of course, you give them lots of water to drink, not so much, definitely no cordial, and reduce the sugar for this particular child because of its sensitivity of its water already. It tells us that it can very easily get congested, very easily inflammation and fevers. So we definitely want to reduce milk and allergens that can cause that. So lots of fruit, lots of salads, and lots of water play. And the two main features there are the fire of Jupiter and the earth of Virgo. Virgo, elimination is critical. Eliminate those wastes. We go to the cusp of the 6th, and we can see that we have an emphasis on air again, which is your Aquarius, and that's the intellectual mind and the central nervous system. So I always see Aquarius as the nervous system itself. So too much stress, zammo, it affects health. And that Neptune in there, in that 6th, reinforces inflammation of the water that these guys are showing us. Is it a sickly child? No, not really. I see this as quite a robust child. Like we know, for the first 3 years, kids are sick like once a week. They always got a snotty nose, and these days with air travel around the world, children are exposed to millions of bugs that they normally would not be exposed to if they lived in one spot and didn't travel. So immune system, a robust immune system, but with a tendency towards inflammation if its diet and water intake is not good. Relationship with siblings, parents. Well, we know that the son can be mother or father. Generally it's father, but if the mum's a domineering mum, a dominant mother, and I don't mean aggressive and brutal, I mean just wears the pants and dad's very passive. So a very active mother will manifest as a son, and the father is, if there is, or sometimes an absent father, can manifest as the moon. So when I'm working with clients, sometimes I'll find where there is a domineering mother, whether the mother is a brutalizer, an abuser, then the mother will be the son. But generally, son, father, moon is the mother. So we've got beautiful relationship with the father, but there is that flavour of being fearful of him. Okay? He's intimidating, he's scary. But there's this absolute love. So it could be that dad's just really loud and scary, and to little children being yelled at, and this is a very sensitive child, that can be blown out of proportion. So dad does need to definitely learn to tone his voice down. Don't be scary. The silly thing about this is, look at astrology. We've already preempted the relationship. And we know that no matter what dad does, the child will still be a little bit intimidated, still a little bit fearful. But that will modify over time. So if I were to advise parents of this, I'd be going, yeah, your child will be scared of you, but you just have to make sure that you explain yourself, that you take time, and that you keep your explosive temper or whatever it is that's scary under control, but you spend a lot of time nurturing that relationship. And that's what we see here, a very strong nurturing and loving relationship between father and child, but it's a little bit scary at times. So that's where the advice to the parents would be, make sure you debrief. So when you lose temper and, jump up and down, which we all can do as parents, parenting is the hardest thing in the world to do. Later on you come back and debrief everybody. It's all right, Okay, so mum, interesting relationship with mum, isn't there? Mum's Piscean. It's a Pisces moon, Pisces mum. She's outgoing because she's coming from, well, both of them are outgoing. Father's in the 10th, that's very outgoing, a successful father. Good role model, beautiful role model there. But that moon it's part of a T-square with Mercury. It's opposite that Jupiter. It's in the 7th, it's conjunct the Chiron, that's the hard one there. So the conjunct is stronger than an opposition, which is stronger than a square, stronger than a quincunx. Mum might be the one that the child gets stuck on more than dad. Even though we know that the Pluto is doom and gloom and the door to the unconscious, this one just seems to be far more far more obvious. It's the 7th house. How do we learn about ourselves the first? Through the 7th house. And in comes mum. So mum's almost like maybe perhaps a bit of a social animal and just not there. Maybe there's some sort of absence there, or there's some sort of wound, you know, or I don't know. That's one I'd probably, if I were doing a reading like this and I got a little bit caught up on this one, I'd go and take out my tarot deck and draw a card or two and just check out my thinking on this to get a bit of an idea, and that will guide me. With a real person, sometimes intuitively I will just go boom boom, that's what this is. So there's things happening here. So Jupiter also is in the 12th house. 12th house is ruled by Pisces, by Neptune. So, or it's a Pisces house, sorry. And Moon's in Pisces opposite Jupiter, got that conjunction with the wounded healer. It's conjunct the Piscean descendant, and it's the doorway to the world, so of the world of other people. It's also close others, so this child will model women, mothers, and if it's a boy, wives or partners on mum. So mum is super critical. Okay, there's dad. Dad's out in the world. He's a cheerful guy. He's a happy guy. He's a nurturing guy. He's a fun guy. He's scary though. But that can be worked on. The mum stuff is far more complicated. So it could be that perhaps mum's sick. Mum has chronic pain. Mum's struggling with her own grief or anxiety. It could be mum has a mental health problem. It could be mum has an injury or an illness that is debilitating, and it affects the joyfulness of that Jupiter, the generosity, the fun-loving, to get out and conquer the world. But mum's sick. I need to be home with mum. And mum represents more than mum now, because mum's in the 7th house. Mum represents every person that comes to him or her. So everybody will be flavoured or touched by the colouring of the relationship with mother. Do you see that? So there's the lens. The 7th house is the lens to the self. How do I view the world? Through my relationship with my mother. And there's something happening with mum I don't quite understand. That is going to be something that probably I might talk to mum about getting some counselling. I wouldn't want mum to walk away and not recognise that you need to do some work on yourself. You need to look at how you manage and cope with your feelings. Okay, even though this is a child's chart, we can see mum and dad, can't we? See that? And that's what I wanted to show you in this first video that I'm doing. Mum and dad are black and white here. We can reverse the roles, in which case you should probably intuit that when you're doing the reading for the parents, or you could even ask them, who's the dominant one here, and they'll probably look at each other, but they will tell you. So this, whoever the moon represents, they are very critical in managing the child's viewing of the world and its place in the world. So I'm going to finish up now. So that's 35 minutes. That's quite a long video. I think you've got a lot out of it. I didn't go through every single planet, and in astrology we could spend weeks and weeks and weeks. Like, I've been doing astrology for 30 odd years. I still look at my chart and see things I didn't notice. Now that's 30 years, and I'm not going to spend 30 years on this video. That would bore everybody to death. So what I've done is I've picked the eyes out of this. We didn't talk about Uranus. Look at Uranus, has a square to a generational. Everybody born in the next 6 months, 2 years or something will all have that square. We don't need to look at that. There is a sextile to Mercury. Okay, well, it adds to the intellect, doesn't it? That's a lovely aspect, and we've got a sharper, even sharper mind. It's coming from the 8th house. That means this child is also attuned to the depth of knowledge rather than just a broad knowledge. It's deep as well. Neptune opposite Jupiter, which means sometimes I feel betrayed. Sometimes I run out there really fast, but it feels like there's an elastic band holding me back. So sometimes I feel a bit lonely. Yeah, it's retrograde, but it adds a little bit. If it were conjuncting something or opposing one of the luminaries, or Mercury, Venus or Mars, yeah, I'd probably give more credence to Neptune. But at this time, I'd look at that and try and put in context of perhaps it adds to the sense of aloneness sometimes when the child is in conflict with others. We go back to Saturn. Look at this T-square with Neptune, Jupiter and Saturn. Again, that's generational. You know, there's a couple of months of kids will all be born with this same generational aspect. So it forms in the 3rd house. It's retrograde. It tells us about education, learning, a little bit about friendships because of its rulership of Capricorn on the 5th. And it just emphasizes that, you know, don't bully me, don't push me around. I'm the leader. I know what I'm doing. I'm smart. And that emphasizes its relationship with others. Also, the intellect is drawn into the creativity, of the 5th, is drawn into that 3rd house of learning. And Mars is the ruler of the 8th house of Aries, and says much the same. It's got some beautiful trines here with Moon and Chiron, so we could say that learning is good. Learning is good for managing the emotions, and it helps dissipate this T-square and this opposition here between Moon, Chiron and Jupiter, and with Mercury. So it helps dissipate the energy, so it emphasizes learning and studying and expressing themselves is actually healthy. It is retrograde, so probably emphasizes again, don't bug me, don't push me, don't force me to do my homework. I will do it. And that's where that Scorpio also emphasizes exactly the same theme. I know how to do this, don't tell me how to do it. So, you know, for a 2-year-old, look out, parents. Okay, we didn't talk about Venus very much, but Venus is a plus sign. See that? So Venus draws people and situations into it. It's in Cancer. It's in the 10th house, conjunct the Sun. That's lovely. So that emphasizes that not only is Dad successful and out in the world, but so will the child will be. And you know, we would emphasize that a network, a social network, is important as I go through life. Anyway, part 2 will be how do we look at the chart of a newborn in terms of transits and progressions. So then we look at where the planets, when they transit, when they move around, how they impact particularly the health of a newborn. To adults and to teenagers, yeah, transits are not always triggers to health, but to a newborn, they usually are big triggers. So thank you for watching, and keep your eyes open for the rest of this series, and also don't forget my books, which are all on the website as well. Thank you.